Hello, my name is Alexander Medina, but you guys can just call me Alex. I'm 20 years old. I graduated from the Culinary Institute of Virginia in February with 2 degrees, nutrition and culinary arts. Now, I started cooking ever since I was a kid, really. There's not a moment where food just clicked. It has always been there. And I started out watching my mom in the morning making eggs. Just kind of like fell in love with it. There's no explanation to why, there's no explanation to how. I just did. And I would invite all my friends over in the morning to cook them breakfast when I was about 10 or 11. And it was literally just eggs and maybe some adobo. I didn't know what I was doing. But people loved it and everybody smiled. So I kept doing it and I kind of got really good at it. Now later on throughout school, middle school and high school, I started paying attention to the chefs around me, such as, what I mean by that as in the teachers, the restaurants I was always around, and as well as the shows. I've been watching Chopped since I was, in the 7th grade, and I've always been a huge fan and always wanted to go on this show. And the reason why I believe I could be on this show is I've spent 3 times in a competition, and I've won all 3 competitions with scholarships. And I donated those scholarships because I was on my father's GI Bill. And now let me tell you about these competitions. The first one was a mystery basket, and it had an array of proteins and produce and breads. And I look at it, and there's about 24 of us in this kitchen. And what I'm thinking is, what do I know personally, and what do I know about my life that I can tell the story of how I grew up? And now, I'm half Puerto Rican, so it just clicked. I saw pork, I saw mangoes, and I saw a piece of bread. Mango salsa with a Spanish pork. It was a little canapé crostini, and it was a blind tasting, and Chef Wadsworth, he was one of my instructors at school. He tasted it, and he chose me to be his partner to finish the competition out. For the second round, there was a mystery basket of pork rinds, oysters, Japanese soda, and this really garlicky, almost tapenade. And so what we decided to make was an oyster shooter. Everybody made a fried oyster with the pork rinds, but in order to stand out, I know that is a key thing to win these competitions, especially mystery baskets, is to stand out and do something completely out of the box. So we did a raw oyster shooter with watermelon and Japanese soda with a pork rind garnish on top. Now for the third round, we had a fish, I believe it was a porgy, and rambutan, squash, and kimchi. So Chef Wadsworth and I, we collabed together, real brief, and instead of doing something that everybody else was going to do, once again, we decided to think outside the box. We made a cioppino, a kimchi and squash cioppino with a rambutan crostini on the side. That we made a rambutan chutney to put on the crostini. The sweet, the sour, the spicy, the tangy, the umami, all those flavors came together to make a delicious soup with a nice crostini. Now we won that competition, and it was about $1,000 scholarship, but I couldn't use it, so I donated it to my friend. The second competition was a Japanese street food, Nekkokan Shoengeki, which, as you guys are familiar with, is a competition that has to do with Japanese food as well, and it's in front of a live audience. There was 45 minutes to this. We had weeks to prepare, so my partner and I, we made an oganiri, a Japanese slaw, a pork gyoza, and a takoyaki with a ponzu sauce. All these components we put into a bento box. Everybody made, a huge entree with a bunch of other stuff and components. But what made us stand out is we have 4 different components in a small bento box. Not everybody did that, and we were able to highlight flavors and textures within different parts of the box. Now my third competition that I won was a Super Bowl. And what I mean by that is it's a power bowl that had a nutritional benefactor to it. So I did a Israeli pearl couscous breakfast bowl. What I did was I took cinnamon, nutmeg, star anise, and pretty much I made a Chinese 5-spice couscous with coconut milk and almond milk. It was a vegan couscous. We took aquafaba. If you're familiar with that, it is the juice of chickpeas, and we whipped it just like a meringue. And we spiced that with the same spices that we added to the couscous. Now, I know this may sound pretty basic and simple, but we took fresh fruit, we glazed some pineapples, and we arrayed it and plated it all around it in a bowl. Now, honestly, what won that competition for us was that it was a vegan bowl. That's a nutritional factor. We had aquafaba, which was a definitely outside the box idea, and as well as the breakfast couscous idea. Nobody else did anything like that. Nobody made anything vegan, and I was the youngest in the competition, and I won. Now, let's backtrack a little bit of my previous years in the kitchen. I started out at Food and Nutrition at Westover High School in Fayetteville, North Carolina, under Miss White. Now, I fell in love with that class instantly. I fell in love with breaking it down to the nutritional benefactor and why it works, and why food tastes so good. So then later on, I moved back to Maryland, where I'm from, and I went to Long Beach High School, and I was under Chef Valenza, and in my Culinary 1 class. And it was just basic, home ec kind of cooking, nothing too crazy. Nobody took the class seriously other than me. And so later on, next year, my junior year, I took Culinary 2, which is the advanced culinary. There was only 4 of us in the class, and yet again, nobody really took the class seriously other than myself. My senior year, I worked under Chef Lang in a Votech school. This was my first time in a real commercial-sized kitchen. It was huge. It was enormous, and there was only 4 of us in the class. It was very, very nice to actually be in a place where people took cooking seriously. And I learned a lot, and we did a bunch of stuff, and it pretty much broke down the basics of how restaurants work and how this industry works. Now, let's talk about my work experience. My first job was a prep cook at Mission Barbecue. I got that job when I was about 16 years old. I was a prep cook in the back, and my first job was literally just to punch fries. And I would just sit there for literally a 5-hour shift and just stir fries up until all the starches came out, until the water was crystal clear. I eventually was able to move on to the line where it was just chopping meat and putting it on a plate. Now, they put me in the back again to do most of the prep work. I was 16 years old, working 45 hours a week easily, going to high school, waking up, going in the kitchen, and then coming to work to another kitchen. So I was there for about a year. I opened that restaurant, and then I was there for about a year. I felt as though, I learned barbecue. Now I can move on a little bit. I went to Panera Bread. Yes, I feel as though it was kind of a step back, but it taught me speed, consistency, and customer service. And I was there again for about a year. And then I moved to another restaurant called Timbuktu. It's very, very famous in the area for their crab cakes. This is where I fell in love with seafood. I wasn't doing much. I was just, doing cheesesteaks and, working the flat top. However, I was watching these people cut the meat, cut the whole fillets, cut the whole fish, and I just watched in awe of how they did this. And then I moved to Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, where I went to school at, where I got a job at Olive Garden. Once again, it was another corporate restaurant, and I understand that there's not much room for it, but I just honestly wanted to be in a kitchen and wanted a place to work. And that was just where my foot got into the door of real line cooking. And then eventually I started to work at the Lynnhaven Fish House, which is another huge restaurant that is unfortunately closed down at the moment. It has It was open for about 40 years. It was a huge staple in Virginia Beach, and they made seafood, and it was kind of like a surf and turf restaurant. They did pork chops, they did steaks, they got the whole fillets, they got the whole fish, and it was just really interesting to be able to sit there and watch my chefs break these things down. And while I'm in these restaurants, I'm working and studying how they're doing this, but as well as studying at school and to figure out how this works and how to make myself better at this. Now, I left the Lynn Haven Fish House to go to a little Puerto Rican place called the Mojito Cafe. The Mojito Cafe really spoke to me, mainly because I'm half Puerto Rican myself, and there wasn't much in the area that I could really kind of call my own cuisine. But this Puerto Rican restaurant really opened my eyes to how my culture cooks and how my culture eats. And I stayed there for about another 6 months, where then I graduated school and moved down here to the Outer Banks on Hatteras Island. Now I'm working under Chef Rusty Midget, who has worked under Alphonse and the Master Chef Alphonse, and eventually, moved all the way up and down the East Coast, and he opened his own restaurant. He's teaching me a lot. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of food that I'm just like, wow, this is insane. I can't believe I've never seen this or never heard of this or never tried this. The flavor combinations, the textures, everything about it, I love. Now, honestly, do I believe I'm bigger than the island? Absolutely, I believe I'm bigger than the island, and that's why I'm applying to this now. Now, all the competitions and all the food that I made is on my Instagram and on my Facebook as well, which is in this application. Now, the reasons why I want to apply to Chopped is because I've been watching this show ever since I was a kid. Season 1 all the way up until season 15 or 20, whatever season we're on, and I'm just in awe. I look at it and I see I won 3 competitions, yes, against my fellow classmates, but I always felt as though I had something else to offer than just these basic competitions. I am fast, I have good knife skills, I have good flavor combinations, I know what goes well with what, the textures, and everything in it. I can also add a little Spanish flair that a lot of people don't really see in me or expect in me. Now, if you guys watching this video believe in me and I really think that I can show up and do this, my goal after the competition, if I win and when I win, because there's no doubt about it, I want to open up a food truck with my best friend. Now, the food truck we want to open is going to be called Good for the Soul. His roots are in the South. Mine are Puerto Rican. We want to do a fusion food truck. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope I gave you guys a little information about myself. Once again, my name is Alexander Medina. My email is lowercase medina@gmail.com. My phone number is 443-988-1124, and I hope to see you guys soon. And I really hope to show you guys that I can really do this. Despite how young I am and despite my ignorance, I will show you guys that I can rock this kitchen. Despite how much space there is and despite the competition, I will prove it to you, and I will prove it to everybody else. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I appreciate everything that you have done. Thank you, and have a great day.